Everyone knows.
It's everywhere.
You can't stop it!
They're sharing it.
Trust is supposed to be the foundation of family relationships. But what happens when the people you trust most in the world betray you in the worst possible way at the worst possible time? Because that's exactly what my brother and parents did to me when they stole $15,000 from my wedding fund just weeks before my wedding, so my brother could have a luxury honeymoon in Bali. So I'm a 27-year-old woman, and I've been engaged to my fiancé Marcus for about a year. We'd been planning our wedding for months and had set a date for this coming October, and we'd been saving aggressively to pay for everything because we didn't want to go into debt for one day, even though it was an important day. My parents had offered to contribute to the wedding when we first got engaged, and they suggested we open a joint savings account where they could deposit money for the wedding, and I could also add my contributions, and the account would require 2 signatures to make withdrawals, so nothing could be taken out without both me and one of my parents signing off on it. I thought this was a great idea because it meant the wedding money was separate from my regular accounts, and I wouldn't be tempted to spend it. And my parents deposited an initial $5,000 and said they'd add more as they could afford it. And over the past year, I'd been putting in about $1,000 a month from my salary. By July, we had about $15,000 in that account, which was going to cover our venue deposit and catering and most of our other major expenses, and I was feeling really good about where we were financially with the wedding planning, and I was grateful to my parents for their help and support. My brother Nathan got married in June about 2 months ago, and his wedding was this huge, elaborate affair that my parents paid for almost entirely because Nathan and his wife Kelly didn't have much in savings. And I was happy for them, even though I'll admit I was a little jealous that my parents had been so generous with Nathan's wedding while being more modest with their contributions to mine. But I understood they had financial limitations, and I was grateful for any help. Nathan and Kelly had planned a honeymoon to Cancun that they'd booked and paid for months in advance, but then about 2 weeks after their wedding, Nathan called a family dinner and announced that they'd decided they wanted to upgrade their honeymoon to something more special, and they'd been looking at luxury resorts in Bali and found this amazing package, but it was significantly more expensive than what they'd budgeted for Cancun. My parents were sympathetic, but said they couldn't afford to give Nathan and Kelly any more money since they'd just paid for the wedding, and Nathan seemed disappointed, but said he understood and they'd just stick with their original Cancun plans. And that was the end of the conversation, or so I thought. Fast forward 2 weeks to last Tuesday, I went to the bank to deposit another $1,000 into the wedding account, and maybe transfer some money to pay our venue's next installment, and when I checked the account balance at the ATM, it showed a balance of $73, and I thought there must be some kind of error because there should have been over $16,000 in that account. I went inside and asked a teller to check the account, and she pulled up the transaction history and showed me that there had been a withdrawal of $15,900 made 3 days earlier, and when I asked who had authorized it, she said it was signed by my mother and my brother Nathan, and I just stood there in shock trying to process what she was telling me. I asked her how Nathan's signature was on the withdrawal when the account was supposed to be joint between me and my parents only, and she said that according to their records, Nathan had been added to the account as an authorized signer about a month ago with both my parents' signatures, and apparently you could have multiple people authorized on a joint account and any 2 of them could make withdrawals. I was absolutely stunned and furious, and I immediately called my mother demanding to know why Nathan had been added to my wedding account and why $15,000 had been withdrawn, and she got really quiet and then said she'd wanted to talk to me about that, and she admitted that Nathan had asked to borrow money for his upgraded Bali honeymoon, and my parents had agreed to let him take it from the wedding fund temporarily with the understanding that he'd pay it back before my October wedding. I completely lost it on the phone and said that money wasn't theirs to loan out. It was my wedding fund that I'd been contributing to for a year, and even though my parents had added money to it, I'd put in over $12,000 of my own money, and she said technically it was a joint account, so the money belonged to all of us equally, and they'd made a decision to help Nathan with the understanding it was a short-term loan. I asked her how Nathan was planning to pay back $15,000 in less than 3 months, when he and Kelly didn't have any savings, and my mom got defensive and said Nathan had assured them he'd be getting a bonus at work and he'd be able to pay it all back by September, and I told her that was insane and irresponsible, and she'd basically just given away my wedding fund to my brother for a luxury vacation. My mom said I was being dramatic and that Nathan would pay it back so I'd have the money for my wedding, and if he couldn't pay it all back, then my parents would cover the difference. And I said I didn't believe that for a second because if they had $15,000 to cover it, they wouldn't have needed to take it from my wedding fund in the first place. I called my dad next, and he was more apologetic, but also defensive, saying they were just trying to help Nathan and Kelly have a nice honeymoon, and they didn't think I'd mind since it was temporary. And I asked him why they didn't ask me before adding Nathan to the account and before authorizing this massive withdrawal. And he said they knew I'd say no, so they just made the decision themselves. I told him that was exactly the problem. They knew I wouldn't agree to this, so they went behind my back and stole my money. And he said it wasn't stealing because it was a joint account, and they had every legal right to make that withdrawal. And I said just because something is legal doesn't make it right or ethical. I immediately called Marcus and told him what happened, and he was just as furious as I was, and he said we needed to go to the bank immediately and get me removed from that account and open a new account in just my name for any remaining wedding funds, and he was right, but at that point there was only $73 left, so there wasn't much to protect. I tried calling Nathan to confront him about taking my wedding money, and he didn't answer. But Kelly posted on Instagram that same day showing them at the airport heading to Bali with a caption about how blessed they were to be taking their dream honeymoon, and I commented on the post asking if they were enjoying their vacation funded by my stolen wedding money, and she deleted the comment and blocked me. My parents called me later that evening and said I was causing unnecessary drama and that I needed to trust that Nathan would pay the money back, and I told them I had zero trust in any of them anymore, and I wanted a written contract from Nathan promising to pay back the money with a specific timeline and consequences if he didn't, and my mom said I was being ridiculous asking for a contract from family. I consulted with a lawyer about my options, and he said that because it was a joint account, my parents had technically acted within their legal rights to add Nathan and authorize the withdrawal, even though it was morally wrong, and my best option was to pursue it as a family matter and try to get a written agreement for repayment or potentially sue Nathan and my parents in small claims court for the money I'd personally contributed. Marcus and I had to have some really difficult conversations about the wedding because we no longer had the funds to pay for what we'd planned, and we looked at our options, which were either postponing the wedding until we could save up again, significantly scaling back what we'd planned, or eloping and having a small reception later, and we ultimately decided to keep the October date but drastically reduce the scale, which meant canceling our venue and catering and rethinking everything. I had to call all our vendors and explain that we needed to cancel or significantly reduce our orders, and some of them were understanding while others charged us cancellation fees that we couldn't really afford, and the whole thing was humiliating and stressful, and I was furious that I was dealing with this because my parents and brother had stolen from me. Nathan and Kelly came back from Bali 2 weeks later and posted hundreds of photos of their luxury resort and spa treatments and fancy dinners, and every photo made me more angry knowing that they were living it up on money that was supposed to pay for my wedding. I finally got Nathan on the phone and confronted him, and he had the audacity to say that he didn't think it was a big deal because my parents had said it was fine, and he fully intended to pay me back, and I asked him when exactly he planned to pay back $15,000, and he said he was working on it, and I needed to be patient. I asked about the bonus he'd supposedly told my parents he was getting, and he admitted that the bonus wasn't guaranteed and probably wouldn't be as much as he'd hoped, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 if he got it at all. And I told him so. He'd lied to our parents to get the money, and now he had no way to actually pay it back before my wedding. Nathan got defensive and said I was being unreasonable expecting him to come up with that much money so quickly, and that if I was really that desperate for cash, maybe I should just have a smaller wedding because big weddings are wasteful anyway, and I hung up on him before I said something I'd regret. My parents tried to mediate and offered to pay back $5,000 themselves by September, which meant I'd still be short almost $11,000 for my wedding. And when I pointed this out, my mom said maybe Nathan could pay back $1,000 a month after September, and I'd have the full amount eventually. And I told her that didn't help me with my October wedding, and this whole situation had shown me that I couldn't trust any of them. Marcus and I ended up having a small ceremony at a local park with just close friends and our officiant, and we had a casual backyard reception at Marcus's parents' house instead of the nice venue we'd booked. And while it was still a lovely day, it wasn't what we'd planned and saved for, and I was heartbroken and angry the entire time knowing that my dream wedding had been stolen from me so my brother could have a luxury honeymoon. I haven't spoken to Nathan since the phone call, and I don't plan to forgive him unless he pays back every single dollar he took, which at his current rate of paying nothing will be never. And my relationship with my parents is severely damaged because they enabled Nathan's theft and they still don't seem to understand why I'm so upset. My dad keeps saying I'm holding a grudge over money and family is more important than money, and I keep trying to explain that it's not about the money, it's about the betrayal and the lack of respect for me and my wedding and my savings, but he doesn't want to hear it. So here we are. I'm married now, which is wonderful, but I had to drastically scale back my wedding because my family stole from me. And I'm left wondering if I'll ever be able to trust them again, or if this has permanently destroyed our relationship. What do you think? Am I wrong to be this angry at my family? Or would you have reacted the same way if your parents and siblings stole your wedding fund? Drop your honest opinion in the comments below. And if this story made your blood boil like it still makes mine boil, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss more stories about family drama, and thanks for letting me share my story.